In the heart of a grand palace, beneath the glittering stars of an alien world, Princess Lyra sat in a large, opulent room, gazing out at the vast landscape. Her long silver hair cascaded down her back, and her sharp features were framed by the flickering light of the distant suns. She was the daughter of King Thulorn, ruler of the mighty Xiron Empire. Yet, despite her royal lineage, Lyra was not like the strong, confident leaders that her people admired. She was shy, unsure of herself, and unable to command the respect that others expected from her. King Thulorn, her father, sat at a large wooden desk in his chamber, his brow furrowed in deep thought. He had watched his daughter grow from a young child into a woman, yet he could never see the strength in her that was so common in his people. While other children played and sparred, Lyra would often hide away, reading books or looking at the stars, lost in her thoughts. Her timid nature troubled the king, and he knew that something had to be done. "She is my only heir," King Thulorn thought, "and she must be strong." But how? His advisors, loyal to the crown, had suggested various training methods, from ancient combat techniques to learning the ways of diplomacy, but none of these seemed to suit Lyra. Her spirit was gentle, and brute force seemed to scare her. That's when an idea struck him, a radical idea. He had heard many rumors of the human species, a race that was considered primitive by most advanced civilizations. Yet what they lacked in power and technology, they made up for in resilience and willpower. They had an incredible ability to survive, no matter the circumstances. Maybe, just maybe, one of them could help his daughter find the strength she needed. The king made his decision. He would give his daughter a human, a gift, in the hope that the human spirit could ignite the fire of bravery and determination inside her. Days later, a ship landed on the royal grounds, its engines humming softly as it settled on the bright alien soil. The ship's door opened, and a figure stepped out. It was a human, a man named Lucas. His appearance was humble, and he looked out of place among the alien nobles. His clothes were simple, his face a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. He had been chosen because of his resilience, not his strength, and the king was certain that he could help Lyra see the strength within herself. Lyra, who had never seen a human before, stood in front of her father's throne, her heart pounding with uncertainty. Her father's eyes were filled with expectation, and his voice, though kind, held a certain weight. "Lyra, this is Lucas. He is to be your companion, your trainer, and your guide. I believe that his strength will help you find your own." Lyra glanced at Lucas, unsure of what to think. He was shorter than the aliens around her, his skin a pale shade of pink that seemed so different from her people's bright blue tones. His eyes, however, were bright and full of determination, not unlike a spark of fire. "Father, are you sure?" "He's only a human," Lyra said softly, her voice tinged with doubt. She couldn't understand how someone so unlike her could help her become strong. Humans were nothing like the proud warriors of the Xiron Empire. The king's gaze softened. "You will see, my daughter. Strength comes in many forms." Lucas stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "Your Highness," he said in a calm but firm voice, "I am honored to serve you." He wasn't sure how he had come to this position, but he knew that he had been chosen for a reason. Humans might not have the physical power of the Xiron people, but they had something just as important: perseverance. Lyra nodded slowly, unsure of what to do next. She had no choice but to trust her father's decision. With a final glance at Lucas, she turned and left the throne room. The alien nobles who had been watching whispered amongst themselves. They too were unsure of what to make of this strange human who had been brought into their midst. That night, Lyra sat alone in her chamber, her thoughts swirling. She had never felt comfortable with her royal duties. Unlike her father, she didn't possess the commanding presence that demanded attention. She had always been more comfortable in her own world, a world of books and quiet moments. Why did he choose a human? She wondered aloud. How can someone so small help me? But something about the way Lucas had looked at her, calm, patient, and unafraid, stirred something inside her. For the first time, she felt a spark of curiosity. Could a human really help her find the strength her father believed she had inside her? The next day, Lucas arrived at her door, ready to begin the training. His presence was quiet, yet filled with a steady determination. Little did Liara know that this unlikely partnership would change her life in ways she couldn't even imagine. The days after Lucas's arrival were filled with uncertainty for Princess Liara. Her mind swirled with confusion and doubt. She had never imagined that a human would play such an important role in her life. How could someone like Lucas, who seemed so small and weak compared to the warriors of her people, help her become strong? She wasn't sure if she could trust her father's decision, but deep down, she felt a tiny spark of hope. The morning after their first meeting, Lucas arrived at her chamber, his expression calm yet determined. He didn't speak much, but his presence seemed to calm the princess, in a way she couldn't explain. With a gentle bow, he spoke softly, "Your Highness, shall we begin?" Liara nodded, still unsure but curious to see what this human could teach her. As they walked through the grand halls of the palace, she couldn't help but notice how different he seemed from the soldiers who filled the palace grounds. Lucas was not tall like the HFY warriors, nor did he carry himself with the same imposing strength. But there was something in his eyes, something steady, something she hadn't seen in herself. They reached the training grounds, where many of the palace guards practiced their combat skills. The sound of weapons clashing filled the air as Liara stood quietly, observing. She had always found combat intimidating, especially when she saw the power of the alien soldiers. But Lucas simply smiled and gestured for her to follow him. "Today, we start with something simple," he said. "Strength is not only in muscles. It's in the mind, too." Liara raised an eyebrow. "In the mind?" "Yes, the human spirit is resilient. You may not have the physical strength of the Tyran warriors, but you have something else, your willpower. If you can control your thoughts and stay calm in the face of fear, you will be stronger than you think." Liara wasn't sure what he meant. She had always relied on others to handle the difficult situations, but something about his words stirred something deep within her. Maybe it was time to change. They began with breathing exercises. Lucas asked her to sit on the ground and close her eyes. "Breathe in deeply," he instructed. "Hold your breath for a moment, and then release it slowly. Focus only on your breath, nothing else." At first, Liara felt foolish. Sitting in silence and breathing deeply didn't seem like a way to become strong. But as she followed his instructions, she began to feel something different. Her racing thoughts slowed down. For a brief moment, she felt peace. She had never known how loud her mind had been, how many worries and fears crowded her thoughts. But now, as she focused on her breath, she felt a kind of calm that was new to her. After a while, Lucas stopped the exercise and nodded in approval. "Good. You're learning to control your mind. The first step to strength is understanding yourself. Only then can you face the challenges ahead." Liara stood up, feeling a little lighter. She didn't fully understand what Lucas meant, but she could tell something was changing inside her. Her body was still soft and untested, but her mind was starting to feel stronger. The next day, Lucas introduced her to more physical training. He showed her how to move her body with purpose, how to stay balanced and focused even when she felt uncertain. They practiced basic stances and footwork, and while Liara's movements were far from graceful, she could feel her body waking up. The muscles that had been dormant for so long began to respond to the training. Lucas's patience never wavered. He didn't push her too hard, but he challenged her in small ways, asking her to do just a little bit more each time. "The key to progress," he would say, "is persistence. You don't have to be the strongest right now. Just keep trying." Days turned into weeks, and Liara noticed changes she hadn't expected. Her body was stronger, yes, but more than that, her confidence was growing. She wasn't the same uncertain princess who had first met Lucas. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a glimmer of strength in her own eyes. A strength she hadn't known was there. But the road to true power was not easy. Lyra still struggled with many of the exercises. Her muscles ached, and there were moments when she felt like giving up. But Lucas was always there, encouraging her with a quiet word or a reassuring smile. "You are doing great," he would say. "Remember, the most important battle is the one inside you. It's not about defeating others. It's about defeating your own doubts." One afternoon, Lyra faced a moment that would test her. During a training session, she was asked to spar with one of the palace guards. The guard was a strong warrior, much taller than Lucas, and Lyra could feel the weight of his presence. Her heart raced, and for a moment, doubt crept in. She was about to back out when she heard Lucas's voice from the sidelines. "Stay calm. Trust yourself. You've come a long way." Lyra nodded to herself. She wasn't the strongest, but she had learned something important. Strength wasn't about power alone. It was about courage, perseverance, and the will to keep going, even when things felt impossible. As the sparring match began, Lyra focused on her breathing, remembering the lessons Lucas had taught her. She wasn't perfect, but she stood tall and moved with purpose. It wasn't about winning. It was about standing her ground. And for the first time, Lyra didn't feel weak. She felt strong. As weeks passed, Princess Lyra's training continued. Each day brought new challenges, but also small victories. Her body had grown stronger, and her mind, once filled with self-doubt, was becoming more focused. Still, there was something she hadn't yet mastered: her fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being judged. Fear of not living up to the expectations of her father, King Thorn. One afternoon, Lucas led Lyra to a new area of the palace grounds. It was a quiet, peaceful garden, filled with strange, colorful flowers and tall trees that stretched toward the sky. The scent of the flowers filled the air, calming her senses. Lyra was puzzled. This place seemed so different from the harsh training grounds, where the sound of clashing swords was a constant reminder of the battle ahead. "Today's training will be different," Lucas said, his voice calm and steady. "We're not going to focus on physical strength, but something more important: mental strength." Lyra frowned. "Mental strength? I don't understand. How can thinking help me become strong?" Lucas smiled, sitting on a rock and patting the space beside him. "Come sit. Let me explain." She hesitated, unsure, but then slowly joined him on the rock. Lyra crossed her arms over her chest, waiting for him to continue. "Many warriors think strength is only about muscles or the ability to fight. But the greatest battles are often fought in the mind. Your thoughts, your emotions, these can either help you or hold you back." Lyra listened carefully, trying to absorb his words. She had always seen strength as something external, something to be built through combat and physical training. But now Lucas was telling her it was more than that. "You've done well with the physical training, Lyra," Lucas continued. "But the real test is controlling your emotions. Fear, anger, doubt, they can all make you weaker. If you let them control you, you won't be able to see the true power within." Lyra looked down, thinking about what he said. I feel afraid often," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid that I won't be good enough, that I'll disappoint my father." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "That's normal. Fear is a part of every warrior's journey. But the key is not to avoid fear, but to learn how to face it, to control it. Only then can you be truly powerful." With that, Lucas led Lyra through an exercise in the garden. He asked her to close her eyes and focus on her breathing, just like she had learned in the early days of training. Then he asked her to imagine a situation that made her feel afraid, perhaps a battle or facing someone who was much stronger than her. Lyra hesitated. Her mind immediately went to the time she had watched her father, King Thorn, fight. His power, his strength, they had always made her feel small. She imagined herself standing beside him, unable to fight like the others, feeling weak and useless. But Lucas's voice broke through her thoughts. Don't just feel the fear, Lyra. See it, face it, and then slowly release it. Lyra took a deep breath. Slowly, she began to see the fear in her mind, as if it were a dark shadow following her. But instead of running from it, she decided to stand still, to face it. She focused on the fear, its weight, its cold grip on her heart. And then she let it go. It wasn't easy. The fear didn't disappear all at once, but with each breath, Lyra felt a little lighter. She could feel the tension in her body begin to ease, her thoughts growing clearer. "Good," Lucas said, his voice soft. "You're learning. Fear will always be there, but now you know how to control it." Lyra opened her eyes and smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel the weight of fear on her shoulders. It was still there, but it no longer ruled her. She had taken control. Lucas stood up, offering his hand to her. "Now, let's see how this new strength translates into action." They moved to a small training area nearby, where Lyra was asked to face an opponent, one of the palace guards who had been watching her progress. This was different from their usual sparring sessions. The guard was skilled, and Lyra knew that the match would test her in a way that no training exercise ever had. At first, the familiar feeling of fear returned. Her heart raced, her breath quickened. She almost stepped back, but then she remembered Lucas's words. "Face it. Control it." With a deep breath, Lyra steadied herself. The guard charged forward, and Lyra reacted, blocking his first strike with a quick movement. Her body flowed into a series of precise steps that Lucas had taught her, each motion building on the last. The guard was strong, but Lyra was faster. She used her mind to stay calm and controlled, her movements steady and calculated. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt in control, not just of her body, but of her mind. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't worried about her father's expectations. She was simply present, focused on the task at hand. The match ended quickly, and Lyra found herself standing tall, her heart racing not from fear, but from excitement. She had done it. She had faced her fear, controlled it, and come out stronger. Lucas smiled, watching her with pride. "Well done, Lyra. You've taken the first step into becoming a true warrior." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something else. Determination. She was no longer the timid princess who hid from her fears. She was someone new, someone stronger. Princess Lyra stood tall, her heart filled with pride. The battle with the guard had been a turning point. It was not just about physical strength, but about control. Her mind had become her greatest ally, and for the first time, she felt truly capable. Lucas had seen her potential, and now she could see it too. The next few days were filled with more intense training. Each day brought new challenges, but Lyra met them with determination. Her movements became more fluid, her strikes sharper, and her focus stronger. She was no longer the timid princess she once was. She had transformed into a warrior in every sense of the word. But there were still doubts lurking in the back of her mind. Though she had conquered her fear in the training yard, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that her father, King Thorn, still saw her as weak. She wanted to prove herself to him. She wanted to show him that she was not just a princess, but a powerful force in her own right. One evening, as the twin moons of Lathora rose high in the sky, Lyra found herself standing before her father in the royal gardens. The soft glow of the moons bathed the landscape in silver light, casting long shadows on the ground. King Thorn sat on a stone bench, his posture regal as always. His eyes, sharp and calculating, studied her as she approached. "Father," Lyra began, her voice steady but nervous. "I've been training hard. I'm ready to prove myself." King Thorn didn't say anything at first. He simply observed her, his gaze unwavering. Lyra felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. She wasn't sure what to expect. Would he be proud of her progress, or would he dismiss her efforts as childish? After what felt like an eternity, the king finally spoke. "Prove yourself." His voice was deep, commanding. Prove yourself to whom? Lyara's heart skipped a beat. She had hoped for a different response, one filled with encouragement. But instead, her father's words were laced with challenge. She looked down, searching for the right words. To myself, she replied, her voice quiet but firm. And to you. I want to show you that I am strong, that I can protect this kingdom. King Thalorn's expression softened ever so slightly. He studied her for a moment longer, then gave a slow nod. Very well. If you wish to prove yourself, you must face the trial of the blade. Lyara's heart raced. The trial of the blade was a legendary test, reserved for the greatest warriors of the kingdom. It was said to be a grueling battle, where one's skill, strength, and spirit were pushed to their absolute limits. Only the bravest and most skilled warriors were ever chosen to take it. Do you believe you are ready? Her father asked, his tone skeptical. Lyara didn't hesitate. Yes, father. I am ready. Her father's eyes narrowed, his gaze penetrating. He could see the resolve in her eyes, but he also saw the flicker of uncertainty. It was clear she wasn't entirely sure of herself. But this was a challenge, and he knew that she needed to face it if she was ever to truly understand her own strength. Very well, King Thalorn said, standing up. The trial of the blade will take place at dawn. Prepare yourself. With those words, he turned and walked away, leaving Lyara standing alone in the moonlit garden. She felt a surge of adrenaline. This was her moment. The trial of the blade was her chance to prove to her father and to herself that she was capable of far more than anyone had ever believed. That night, Lyara didn't sleep. Her mind raced with thoughts of the trial ahead. She knew it would be difficult, perhaps the hardest challenge she would ever face. But she was determined. She had come too far to turn back now. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Lyara made her way to the arena. The ground was still damp from the night's dew, and the air was crisp and cool. The arena was a large, open space surrounded by tall stone walls. In the center of the arena stood a tall pedestal, upon which rested the blade of Lathora. The blade was a legendary weapon, said to hold the power of the kingdom's ancestors. Only those deemed worthy were allowed to wield it. Lyara stood at the edge of the arena, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear the whispers of the palace guards and the watchful eyes of the kingdom's nobles as they gathered to witness the trial. Everyone was watching her, waiting to see if she would succeed or fail. Lucas appeared beside her, offering a quiet smile. You've come a long way, Lyra. But remember, the trial is not just about the blade. It's about you, your courage, your strength, your spirit. Trust yourself. Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath. She stepped into the arena, her feet light but determined. The blade of Lathora glinted in the morning light, waiting for her to claim it. This was her moment to shine, to prove to everyone, and to herself, that she was ready for whatever lay ahead. With a steady hand, she reached for the blade. The trial had begun. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft golden glow over the arena. Lyra stood at the center, her breath steady, but her heart pounding in her chest. The blade of Lathora, a weapon known for its power and history, lay on the stone pedestal in front of her. It was a symbol of strength, and today, it would become the tool that would either break her or prove her worth. The sound of whispers echoed from the stands as the nobles, soldiers, and advisors of the kingdom gathered to witness the trial. King Thalorn stood at the highest point, his gaze fixed on his daughter. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes betrayed a hint of anticipation. He wanted to see if Lyra was truly ready for the responsibility that came with being more than just a princess. He wanted to see if she could handle the power that the blade represented. Lyra's fingers tightened around the hilt of her sword. She could feel the weight of the weapon, but it didn't feel as heavy as it once had. No longer was it just a tool of war. It was a symbol of her own growth, a weapon for a warrior, not a frightened princess. As she took a step forward, Lucas's words echoed in her mind. Trust yourself. It was the key. She had spent years hiding behind her fear, allowing others to define her. But now, with every training session, with every challenge, she had learned something important. Her true strength didn't come from the blade. It came from within her. The trial of the blade was not just about defeating an opponent or mastering a weapon. It was a test of spirit, resilience, and courage. The task was simple in its appearance but brutal in execution. Lyra had to face a series of challenges, each designed to push her past her limits. The first challenge came quickly. From the shadows at the far end of the arena, a figure emerged. It was a massive creature, a beast that was said to have been bred for battle. It had the body of a wolf, with sleek black fur and glowing yellow eyes that seemed to pierce the very air. The creature growled as it locked eyes with Lyra, its muscles rippling as it prowled forward. The crowd fell silent. This was the first of many trials. The beast was fast and powerful, its claws capable of tearing through stone. Lyra knew she would have to outsmart it, not just overpower it. Her training with Lucas had prepared her for this moment. She was no longer the scared princess who relied on others. She was a warrior, and this creature was just another obstacle to overcome. With a deep breath, Lyra shifted her stance. The creature lunged forward, its jaws snapping. Lyra sidestepped just in time, her movements quick and precise. She knew she couldn't afford to make a mistake. Every move she made had to be calculated, every action decisive. She parried the creature's next strike, the clash of claws against the blade echoing in the arena. The beast snarled, its eyes full of rage. But Lyra didn't flinch. She was focused, her every sense heightened by the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had trained for this. She had prepared for this. With a swift move, Lyra ducked under the beast's next attack and jabbed the blade forward, striking at its side. The creature howled in pain, but it was not defeated. It tried to claw at her, but she danced away, graceful and quick. Her strikes were deliberate, each one wearing down the creature's strength. As the battle raged on, Lyra felt a connection to the blade. It wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of her will. The more she moved, the more she understood it, and with that understanding, she gained an edge over the beast. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lyra saw her chance. The creature made a fatal mistake, leaving itself open for just a moment. Lyra's blade flashed, and with one decisive blow, she struck it down. The beast collapsed to the ground, defeated but not destroyed. It lay still, breathing heavily, but Lyra had proven her skill. The arena erupted in cheers. Lyra stood tall, breathing hard but triumphant. She had passed the first challenge. But she knew this was only the beginning. There would be more tests, more trials, and each one would be harder than the last. But Lyra felt a newfound sense of confidence. She had faced her fear and overcome it. The rest of the trial would not be easy, but she was ready. King Thorn watched silently from above, his eyes narrowed in thought. He had seen many warriors in his time, but there was something about Lyra that made him believe she was destined for greatness. She had earned the right to wield the blade of Lothora, and he could no longer deny the strength that she had gained. Lucas, standing off to the side, smiled quietly. He had always believed in Lyra's potential. Today, she had proven him right. Lyra's journey was far from over, but the trial of the blade had shown her something important. She was no longer just a princess. She was a warrior in her own right, and her future was hers to shape. The air in the arena grew heavy, as the shadows of dusk stretched across the stone floor. Lyra stood at the center, her heart racing. She had completed the first challenge, but now came the most important trial, the one that would prove whether she truly had what it took to be more than just the meek daughter of King Thorn. Across the arena, a figure emerged from the darkened entrance. It was tall, its armor gleaming in the fading light. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she took in the sight. The final trial was not just a test of skill. It was a test of strength, willpower, and the ability to make difficult choices. Her opponent was none other than the greatest warrior of the kingdom, a fighter whose name was known across the galaxy. This was her moment to prove herself. As the warrior approached, Lyra felt a surge of fear. The warrior was known for their unmatched strength, and the stories of their victories were legendary. But Lyra refused to let the fear take control. She had come too far to back down now. She gripped the blade of Lathora tighter, feeling its power hum through her. The trials had not just been about fighting. They had been about discovering who she truly was. In every challenge, she had seen how far she had come. And now she had to trust that the training, the lessons, and the strength she had gained were enough. Her opponent stopped a few feet away, raising their sword in salute. "I do not wish to harm you, Princess," they said, their voice deep and steady. "But this trial is necessary. You must face me if you are to prove your worth." Lyra nodded, her resolve firm. "Then let us begin." The sound of swords clashing filled the air as the warrior charged. Lyra quickly moved to the side, narrowly dodging the first strike. She knew this battle wouldn't be easy. The warrior was fast, their movements precise and calculated. But Lyra had learned to read her opponents. She could see the small openings, the moments where her opponent might be vulnerable. The fight continued, each blow and parry more intense than the last. Lyra's arms ached with the effort, but she refused to give up. She had come this far, and there was no turning back. The warrior was relentless, but so was she. As the battle wore on, Lyra's confidence grew. She had faced countless challenges, each one pushing her to the limit. Now, in this moment, she was ready. She moved with a fluid grace, anticipating the warrior's next move and countering with her own. With every strike, Lyra's understanding of the blade deepened. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a part of her, a reflection of her strength. The warriors seemed to sense this. They paused, their sword held high, and surveyed Lyra with a mixture of respect and challenge. "You have improved," they said, "but this is not enough. You must push further, reach deep inside yourself to find the strength you've yet to unleash." Lyra's heart raced as she stared at the warrior. She knew what they meant. The final trial was not just about skill. It was about overcoming her own doubts, her own fears. She had been hiding behind the safety of her training, but now she had to face the most difficult battle of all, the battle within herself. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. "You can do this," she thought. "You are more than just the daughter of a king. You are a warrior." With that thought, she opened her eyes, her focus sharp. The warrior advanced again, but this time, Lyra was ready. She was no longer afraid of the challenge. She was no longer holding back. She met her opponent head-on, her sword moving with precision and power. The clash of their blades rang through the arena. But this time, Lyra's strikes were more than just defensive. They were decisive. With a swift move, she parried the warrior's sword and drove her own blade forward, striking a blow that forced her opponent back. The warrior staggered but didn't fall. They raised their sword, but there was a glint of admiration in their eyes. "You have done it," they said, stepping back. "You have proven yourself worthy." The crowd erupted in applause, but Lyra barely heard them. Her heart was pounding in her chest, her body aching, but she felt a sense of triumph like never before. She had done it. She had passed the final trial. King Thorn stood at the edge of the arena, his eyes fixed on his daughter. For the first time, he allowed a smile to break through his stern exterior. Lyra had done more than prove herself as a warrior. She had proven herself as his true heir. As the warrior stepped forward, they extended their hand to Lyra. "You have earned the right to lead," they said. "You are a true fighter, a true warrior." Lyra took their hand, her grip strong and steady. She had come a long way, but this was just the beginning. The trials were over, but her journey had only just begun. The sun had set, leaving the sky a deep shade of purple. The arena was silent, except for the soft whispers of the wind as it blew through the open spaces. Lyra stood in the center, her sword still in hand, her body bruised but her spirit unbroken. She had won the final trial, but the true challenge was only just beginning. Around her, the people of the kingdom gathered, their faces filled with awe and respect. King Thilorn, watching from his throne, had never felt such pride in his daughter. He had seen her grow from a meek girl into a fierce warrior, a leader who had earned the respect of everyone around her. But now, he would witness her take on the role she was always meant to have, the role of ruler. Liara turned to face the crowd, her heart pounding in her chest. The cheers of the people filled the air, but she couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. She had earned their respect, but did she truly have what it took to lead them? She had been through the trials, but the real test was how she would handle the challenges of ruling. The warrior who had fought her in the final trial stepped forward, bowing respectfully. "Princess Liara, you have shown us all your strength," they said. "You are ready to lead, to protect, and to guide us. The people are behind you." Liara nodded, her voice steady. "Thank you. But I know that the true strength of a leader is not just in their ability to fight. It's in their heart, their ability to make the right choices, and to put the needs of the people first." The warriors smiled, their eyes full of admiration. "You understand what it means to lead. Your father has taught you well." King Thilorn stood and walked down to the arena, his presence commanding attention. He placed a hand on Liara's shoulder, his gaze proud. "You have proven yourself, my daughter. You have done what I could not, become the ruler this kingdom needs. And now, you will take the throne." Liara looked at her father, the weight of his words sinking in. She had always admired him, looked up to him as a model of strength. But now, it was her turn. The kingdom's future lay in her hands. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I promise, Father, I will not let you down. I will do everything I can to lead with wisdom, compassion, and courage." The people cheered again, their voices rising in a wave of support. Liara turned to them, her eyes filled with determination. "This kingdom has been through so much," she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "But together, we will build a future where everyone can thrive. I will protect this land, protect each and every one of you. We will face whatever challenges come our way, together." As she spoke, Liara felt a surge of strength within her. The journey she had taken, the struggles she had faced, had prepared her for this moment. She was no longer the timid princess who had been gifted a human. She was a leader, a protector, a warrior. And she would lead her people into a future of peace and prosperity. King Thilorn looked on with pride, his heart swelling with emotion. He had always known his daughter was destined for greatness. But now, standing beside her as she addressed the people, he could see that she had become something more than he ever imagined. She was a true leader, and the kingdom was in good hands. The crowd continued to cheer, their voices echoing through the night. Liara stood tall, her heart full of hope for the future. She had come a long way from the meek princess who had once been afraid of her own strength. Now she was the ruler of her people, and nothing could stand in her way. As the cheers died down, Liara turned to her father. "Thank you, Father, for believing in me. I won't let you down." King Thilorn smiled warmly, his voice filled with pride. "You already have, my daughter. You already have." With those words, Liara stepped forward, taking her place as the ruler of the kingdom. The future was uncertain, and there would be challenges ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. She was ready. The crowd watched in silence as Liara, the mighty fighter, the compassionate leader, and the future ruler, stood before them. The kingdom had found its new leader, and it was clear to everyone that under her rule, they would thrive. The journey of the meek daughter had come to an end, but the rise of a true leader had just begun.